Well, first of all, just introduce yourselves. I guess you all are contemporaries, raced at about the same time. So just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tim?
I'm Tim Fedewa. I raced in the Busch Series for several years, from the early 90s, I guess, to the early 2000s.
All right.
Randy LaJoie started the Busch Series 85 or 86 and stopped in 06.
I'm glad you guys still call it the Busch Series, because that's all I know it as. I'm Jason Keller. I started in the 80s, kind of on the end of the 80s, and I think my first official race was 90. I shouldn't say early 80s. I'm listening to him. So anyway, I've got a lot of process through my head, and retired in 2010. So I've got a lot of stories, and just thankful to be catching up with these guys. It's been a lot. We've got a lot of gray up here. Well, some of us do, but Timmy doesn't. But still, it's all
I got gray hair.
Stock. He says it's stock.
Yeah, well, you know.
He's a racer too, so he's not gonna tell you the whole story. Right? It's all good.
I never soak tires.
It's all good. Never tell you the whole story. It's all good. Great to see you guys for sure. It's a lot of fun. So.
Well, I guess the reason why I wanted to do this is because during that era, the mid to late 90s, it just seemed like the Busch Series garage was fun to be around. I knew people up and down the garage, and I don't know how much fun it was for you guys, but what did you sense about the division at that time? I mean, was it fun for you, or were you too busy racing to have fun?
I think all the above. I mean, we made it fun. LaJoie was talking about his golf tournament, and I used to have a golf tournament. All these guys come down, and
that was the fun part.
Yeah. We would do things like that, and I can remember a high tool appearance with Timmy. Might
have had too much fun.
I mean, we had a lot of fun, but I mean, those are the kind of things that we do remember. I mean, I remember a lot of the race stuff, but those are the ones that stick with you. These guys. And
when did you start full time?
My first full time was 94.
Okay, and mine too. Yeah.
With the Budget Gourmet deal.
57, your own car. Yeah. Okay.
We kind of started that year off going to run a limited schedule, and then it popped up with us when the sponsor came available, and we ended up full time.
And then you just happened to have the right color car.
We did. Had a white car, so the decals worked out.
Yep.
So.
93 was my first.
Okay.
I ran for rookie against Hermie. Me and him were racing against. He was with Bobby King, and
I think I was actually in that class of rookies.
You
could only had to run so many, but I mean, my first
you didn't run all
full
of them
time. Yeah, it was 94.
You didn't have anything on the car, right?
No,
first,
nothing. 93.
And then you got the Budget Gourmet deal in 93?
94.
94.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, it's that was racing for Hermie. I just remember he was like indestructible. That car, he
had that team that Hermie
Yes, they were so
25
strong.
team.
Fitzgerald and Jimmy
Chris
Fitz
Rice.
and Chris Rice.
Chris Rice was a tire guy. And now he runs Colleague.
Yeah.
And Frankie.
Yep.
Bobby King, of course, was a crew chief, and
they had a handle the other kid too. Sammy.
Who was with Bobby King before Hermie? I'm sad to say, but
Jimmy Hensley.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hensley.
But they'd been racing. The team had.
I had from 94 till
You were spraying champagne a lot in that window, so it was definitely fun. I mean,
it was.
Our drinking Anheuser-Busch beer, so
that was free.
So that's good.
And that was really good.
Yeah.
But it was a different heyday than it is today.
Yeah.
The atmosphere. I mean, the Busch Garage was fun because it seemed like you had guys that it wasn't just a stopping point. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're here, and this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make this thing as good as we can. And I thought we did. It sure would have been a whole lot better if they would have paid us. But no, well, it's all fine and well, but people don't realize late 90s to early 2000s. I mean, every weekend was spring break.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing to go to the racetrack.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize, and I'm going to jump around here and say this because I had a 2-hour ride up here thinking about things with you guys and even the series back then, but not only did we have to race the LaJoies, me race the Timmy Fedewas, the Mike McLaughlins we were talking about, we had to race usually a minimum of a dozen Cup guys.
Cup guys.
And when we come to the big shows, it was 20 Cup guys.
And thank God the Cup teams didn't take over until the late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, but
Because that's what took the fun out.
it really changed
Yes.
things. I mean, and now that whole, you look at, I mean, I can remember running a hooligan race at Charlotte and a hooligan race at New Hampshire, because it was always because all the Busch North
I don't
guys were
remember
there.
the hooligan race at New Hampshire. I surely remember Charlotte.
And I remember running third in the hooligan race at Charlotte, and Earnhardt won it, and Schrader finished second.
Yes, I remember. I think I finished 7th in that race, and
And
they
I-
took 7.
Yeah.
And I felt like I won the Daytona 500.
And I finished third and felt like, and I'm telling everybody, man, I finished third to these guys.
Yep.
It's either third or fourth, I can't remember. But I mean, I was in the top 5, and I remember going, everybody was like, you hadn't even made the race yet. I mean, that was just to make the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember New Hampshire, Mike Laughlin had a car, so we went up there with him, and Schrader was in that top little group too, and I finished second or third or something like that to them too. And I'm going, this is nuts. And that's kind of right when I was just getting really, trying to win some races and run up front. But it was a tough deal.
We go to
It was a
Hickory.
different deal.
Yes.
Different
Well,
deal.
there are just so many cars that show up, and so many, tried and true veterans that would come and run the Busch Series just from time to time. Or, if you go to Hickory, you had to race against Johnny Rumley. You had to race against Ed Barrier what was Pete Silva?
All those guys.
Yes, I mean, I'd show up. I mean, I heard of Pete Silva my whole life, but you don't really know, you knew the David Greens and Bobby Labanis and
Of course, we raced with them a lot.
right. But these other guys that would come in that were just hard ass, hardcore, tough as
Just part timers.
Yes, and they would put up a lap and
And everybody that had a one-off Busch car at that time would show up at Richmond.
Yes.
because it was a
70 cars.
It was a short track car, and short
Yes.
track enough, but you got a bigger track feel.
Right.
And I can remember going with my dad's team. I think it was the year of '93, if I'm not mistaken. Lose a little bit, and I missed both the races. I missed the spring race and the fall
At
race
Richmond?
At Richmond.
I missed
And
both races at Hickory in '93.
And I went back the next spring race, whatever year that was, and I sat on the pole at that time with a new track record. And I'm going, I'm not going to let it beat me. But hit that. Sorry, that's what happened. You'd race those guys, and you didn't have just to race against us regulars, us 10 or 12 regulars like they're racing now. I'm not trying to downplay what the series has become, but it's just so different now. And
Well, like Randy said, I wanted to make a career out of racing in the Busch Series, and if I won't, of course I wanted to go Cup racing, but I wanted to win more races or win a championship. That was the goal of a lot of the Busch Series drivers, and I'm not speaking
Me.
for you, Jay, but I know
you can
it
speak
is
for me. You can speak for me. That's
I
exactly
would say
what
that
mine
was. I can speak for a lot of them, and we had that mindset. Now, like Randy said, if we could only get paid, we were all doing okay, but obviously, if you could go Cup racing in the late '90s or early 2000s,
Think about how the things would be now if they saw the grandstands like
Yes.
they used to be for us.
Yeah.
When we were sold out at Bristol, New Hampshire, you couldn't get
Qualifying day.
I'm talking
Yeah.
the Fridays and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, just think about that. I don't know how much that brought into the pot, but I'm just saying it was just a different. They were building grandstands when we were racing.
Yes.
They weren't tearing them down.
that's right.
And that's the
That's right.
difference of that whole scenario.
I was surprised that we went down to Darlington and rode down with Corey Sunday. And we just drove right in.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, it's before a Cup race? And people just don't realize that, the amount of people that we played to in the 90s. I mean, it places
we
were
used to have to leave
slammed.
you used to have to leave at 6 in the morning to go to the
yeah.
racetrack so you didn't get
Absolutely.
stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
And us older guys that are still around that still drive to the racetrack in the mornings of the race
Yeah.
are so it's hard to leave it. The garage don't open till noon now. The garage opens at noon, and you're like, on Sunday the garage opens at noon. How can we even get there? They have access at 11, so the crews get there at 11. But you don't, like Randy said, you drive right in. And granted, like in NASCAR, there's still a lot of people at a lot of these
Still,
races,
that's right.
but it doesn't go like back to the way it used to be. And there's so many things that have changed that too.
Sure.
I mean, our cell phones, our,
The life.
our social media.
That's right.
The kids play. They don't play 8 games a year in soccer. They play
Sure.
this league, that league, travel ball. Everything is kind of changed to where people don't have.
Well, and the families that used to take they used to have their family trips, so they would go to Rockingham, Darlington, Charlotte, and maybe over to Bristol.
Yep.
Now that with just the way life is, it's just it's hard to do that, and they had to cut
Yes.
that back. And I think it's still a healthy sport, but it's just such a different sport
It's
now.
just
Way different.
Yeah.
I think that the losing car owners, they haven't lost a car count, but they lost car owners. It was always Pollock and C.C. Welliver and Bumgarner, and there was Bobby King. There was 30 car owners, and if you piss one off, you go drive for the other one. You didn't care. But now they don't have that no more.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you guys talked about racing against Cup drivers, and when I was at Scene, I was adamant that Cup drivers did not belong in the Busch Series. I mean, they were just cherry picking and so on and so forth. But I can also say, sitting here, that I can remember sitting at Dover, I believe it was, and you racing Mark Martin and winning.
Mm-hmm.
I can picture you racing Jeff Burton at Darlington on the last lap like it was yesterday. And Tim, I remember one of the best races I ever covered of all places was at Nazareth. And I don't believe that there were any Cup guys, but you guys raced. I mean, you guys were racing hard and getting after it. Now,
we were learning a lot from the Cup guys.
Yeah.
but it
Yeah,
just
you
was
learn a lot.
different.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn from the best.
Like I just remember, because my grandfather hated Mark Martin. Didn't know him. I mean, but just knew that we had to race against him every week.
Yeah.
So he just naturally hated Mark Martin. Never met him, But I'm like, Grandpa, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like I had to explain to him, like, when we race against guys like him, we learn so much, and when we beat him, like it's good for it's good for us. And he never understood that concept. But I like now when Larson's running trucks and Xfinity and Cup, like trying to go for a sweep at Miami, I think it's pretty cool. I like that. I think that brings excitement to it.
Yeah, the difference is the teams. I mean, these Cup guys that are now in the series on Saturday, the teams are so darn good. I mean, in the late 90s, I want to say it all changed. When Dale Jr.
Dale
come
Jr.
in,
showed up with
that's
AC
right.
Delco.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything
And
changed.
Papa E's like, he's going to give this kid whatever it needs. And that changed because then
Well,
Gibbs had to do it.
Your
And then
budget
Gibbs
went
did it with
from
his kids.
800,000 to $2 million.
Yes, exactly.
that.
And
Did it
engineering.
really? Yes.
Oh yeah, it doubled instantly.
Yes.
if not more than that. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes.
because of,
Dale Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean,
Just Dale
what
Jr.,
we
but
combined with that
team,
extra.
like
Well, just
everything, technology,
Yes,
and
technology. Yes.
people.
Even in the one car, we would always take our short track cars to the road courses because we didn't have specialized road course cars. You may have one super speedway car if you were lucky that you had it in the wind tunnel a few times, and those guys had a lot more resources. So understand they were more experienced than us. I'm not saying that I was equal to them at all, but it was just as these guys are saying, it just changed the whole dynamic of everything.
Yep.
But at that time, I think the Cup owners realized they could actually test and their crew members and their engineers. It was nothing but a feeder system, I felt like, for the Cup Series
Same
to
tires.
make their exact everybody.
Like same cars, a little wheelbase, a little different, horsepower is a little different, but you're hitting 5 lug nuts both days. You're right. It was definitely more
You would
of a
race
feeder
against
system.
those guys on
Good
pit
point.
road as well. And
Yeah.
our guys on pit road were working their butts off to get the car there
Setting
and on
their
the
pits
line,
up.
to setting everything
You
up.
were
and
bringing
doing it.
air packs and stuff to the racetrack,
That's-
looking
that's-
like
hey, look,
looking
don't-
like
hey,
jet
look,
packs.
that's- I've gotten a lot of. I guess that popped up online somewhere recently because I've got a lot of comments about that. So.
That was pretty cool. It kind of come out of nowhere. Nobody knew about it, and then it was like, hey, what's
Well, we had it a couple weeks prior to that, and actually Lee McCall at the time he was changing tires for us down home, and he worked with a road race guy, and I can't even remember that guy's name, and they kind of brought it to me, and I'm like, man, we need to probably go to NASCAR and ask about this. And then I got to looking at the rule book, and it said as long as you air tank and a hose. And I said, well, there's a gray area here, but we got an air tank and a hose. I mean, the next morning they made it make sure the air tank couldn't go with you over the wall. So they made a rule the next.
It's easier to ask
morning.
forgiveness.
Yeah.
Than
Yes, it is.
I actually, if they could have found anything, they being NASCAR could have found any reason to penalize me right there, they would have. Because I'm telling you right now, they were about as mad as they could be at me.
Do you remember who your pit official was?
I do not. I'm in the car, not paying attention to it there, and when I got back on the track, the crew chief came over. I don't think it was Addington at the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
It was Addington because Lee McCall was with that. It was Addington. He came over on the radio and said, "Well, they saw it." I said, well, we're going to get to use it if we come back in. Well, we're probably not going to be able to pit again. Okay. Yeah, they're good. They took it, because, see, Lee was changing for, was it Cranifus Haas? Is that the name?
Yep.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
On Sunday. So
Yeah,
Lee was going to take it
37.
already. Bristol was the one any little advantage was big there. So that's why he wanted to take it there. And they were planning to use it the next day, and they wouldn't let him use it. So it's all good.
That's awesome. Now, do you remember in particular any times that you raced each other and kind of got into it a little bit?
I had a side of a car, Phoenix car. You doored me all the way down the backstretch at Charlotte.
I apologize.
Might have been in the hooligan race. But we cut the side off, and I said, yeah, that's Jason Keller.
You and Dale Jr. both have them, so I'm more famous for my for my door scuffs because Jr. says the same thing. I wrecked him in his first Busch race at Myrtle Beach, but I wasn't really focused on him. I was focused on David Green and Jeff Green and those guys, so I guess I did. So I do apologize now. If I,
Well, I've got this really cool picture that one of our
Timmy
former
spun
scene
me out, too,
photographers
didn't
Correct,
sent.
Bristol.
And Jason, you're sideways at Bristol, and the nose of this blue 74 car is visible. And
If that's at Bristol and it's
That was
not the
Jimmy
double O in
Spencer.
front of me, I didn't hit him.
Hey, just
It's not me. If it was a double I in front of me, I could have hit him.
one of the things about that picture at Bristol, it's kind of one of those things. You might get your feelings hurt, but you better forget about it because you're going to get beaten. You're going to get used up right there.
You don't remember that, do you?
I don't
Okay,
remember.
well,
And I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember
You
the
were
Dale
young.
Jr. thing either. So I apologize.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I do remember racing with Fedewa, and I'll say this: you're talking about Nazareth, and one thing about Timmy, he was always great at Nazareth, and that's one of the places I really enjoyed too, and I really liked. And I don't even know if you remember this, Tim. It was always the hottest racetrack in the world. I can always remember that just being just
Yep.
so. I don't know if it's because you couldn't get any air. I don't know why it was. It was just so hot.
burn
And
your
Nazareth?
feet. Yeah,
And
you
Nazareth.
burn your feet.
Yeah.
It was
Really?
terrible.
Just-
A bunch of
yeah.
guys went to the hospital after
Yeah.
that. The Onion went to the hospital.
Yeah.
It was
Patty
terrible.
Maurice went
Okay.
to the hospital.
We were after the race. I think me and Timmy both finished in the top 5, and we had a pretty heated battle. But
I know it's
there, when you pull into the pit area, there you're right at the back of your hauler. So we're sitting on the back of the hauler, really on the ground, if I remember right. We're pouring
Trying to
water
catch
over
our
our head,
breath.
just trying to catch our breath, just talking to each other about the race. And all of a sudden, we see almost like a silhouette shadow walking over us, walking by. And there's Trickle holding the water, smoking a cigarette, and looked at us.
This is the honest. I will never forget this in my
As he's
entire life.
looking down at us young guys. We were in our 20s now at this time. We had to have been.
Yes,
Had to have been in our
yes.
20s. And he's looking down at us, and he's smoking that cigarette and barely drinking his water. Now, we've probably already poured 5 waters over our heads and everything. And said, boy, this sure was hot out there, wasn't it? And I'm looking up going, how in the world is that guy doing that? I mean, so
that's
that
a
was
true
one of the
story.
stories.
Yes,
I'll never
it.
forget that.
Yep.
Now, you were
time.
talking about how Dale Jr. coming in kind of began the change. Did Kevin Harvick in 01 kind of seal that change? Because, Dale Jr. running in the late 90s, he was still a Busch guy.
Yeah.
But then when
Well, he was a
Kevin-
Busch guy, but then that whole team went Cup.
Right.
You know, so I mean that's okay. Or it was Busch one day and Cup the next. So they had what they needed to do the Busch Series and then some.
Yeah.
But then then RCR went on a 4 or 5 year run.
Yeah.
And then Gibbs went out. He's still on the run. I mean, you drive a Gibbs Xfinity car now and you don't win, you might as well just go do something else, because those cars are Formula One, it seems like, compared to a lot of guys. And now Junior's, you know, his 4 cars, those cars, there's 16 cars between Junior, Gibbs. I mean, they've secured RCR, Hendrick. I mean, all those guys, and those things aren't like bad cars. I mean, it's when we ran the Cup guys, you didn't mind because, you know, Harry Gant was in Ed Whitaker's car, come out of a gas station in Bristol.
Right.
So he didn't have no more stuff than we had.
I mean, Ernie Irvin rode around
that's
with
right.
Jay Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crew chief. They built a garage no bigger than this.
Yeah.
And like there was Cup guys racing, but a lot of it was their own.
All
teams
equal
with-
equipment. That's right.
They kind of, you know, they'd build up a trick little car maybe for Charlotte or for.
This is true.
Remember when Jay Smith brought Ernie's car to Charlotte with no Bondo in it? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You could see the weld marks on the sheet metal, and they made him fix it, or I think they took it back that night,
Spread it, yeah.
spread the Bondo on it, and brought it back, repainted it, and because you could see it looked good.
Yeah.
It really didn't need no Bondo, but
Right.
I don't think Carl Simmons liked it, you know.
No.
So
Now you say that, and I'm not taking up for Junior or anything, but that team had been in the Busch Series for at least
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, for at least a couple of years full time. Were they just coming into their own? Did it take
Yeah,
them?
absolutely. The whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Yeah, all those guys. Tony
But I think
Jr. and
Shane,
all those guys.
when you put an Earnhardt in the car, things changed.
Yes.
I mean,
Well, and I think they got-
and I'm not just. I mean, I thought it was like at the time we all wanted to beat Dale Jr. Even like that was great, and it was he was cool. I mean, just he was. It didn't change. Like there was no. I mean, I don't think we
There's
were
no
mad
hard
about
feelings.
it.
No, that's right.
No, I mean we just
because we're all equal.
Yeah.
You know, but they had.
looking back, you're like, well, after a couple of years of it, you're like, maybe, like I said, I know what the budgets were, and we all, Jason, you had a family team.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely know what you were spending.
And at the end of the
where it
90s,
went.
I realized that we couldn't get enough sponsorship to do it. I think to that question or that point, Rick, yeah, that team was around a few years prior to Junior getting there, and they had Tony Uri and Junior. But when he came along, he being Junior, it seemed like a lot of effort was put, and that was. Okay, not only are we going to work on our driver, it seemed like, to go to Cup, but there was a vision that they were going to put all the pieces in place, run in the Busch Series a couple of years, and then move everything to Cup. And it was very successful, extremely successful. But they just didn't have one or two. They had the whole team when they left the Busch Series to go Cup racing. It seemed to me like that way.
Yeah,
And it probably changed
But then that brought in another group.
everybody's mindset that was in the Busch Series that, okay, now maybe we need to.
Well, look at the followers.
Right.
You said Childress. You
Right.
said
Like it just
and I
everybody.
think even at that time, Roush did the same
That's
thing.
right,
Yeah,
that's
Martin
right,
Martin
that's right.
and
Mark and Burton.
Burton would do a little bit, but it was really at that time that we're like, okay, let's actually fine tune our pit crews, our engine, everything,
Yes.
and let's make sure that evolution. It's not just for our drivers to get a few laps on Saturday.
It's everything.
It's
Engine
everything,
builders and-
everything.
Everybody started crossing T's and dotting
Right.
I's a whole
It
lot
was-
more
yes.
in the
Yeah.
late 90s.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, am I correct in saying that Jeff in the 10 car in the year 2000, is he the last to win a championship in a Busch or Xfinity only race team, not connected to a Cup team?
Well, you'd have to.
I would say, yeah.
That's probably so, because that was,
PPC, I mean,
that
you
was,
guys-
Greg's deal and PPC. Yeah, I would. That probably I could see that being true.
Yeah.
I can't confirm that's true.
All right.
But at that time, still though, Ford had came to Pollux when I was with Greg at PPC. So we were getting a little more than a normal Busch team at that time too, because Ford saw that, let's use this as more of just racing on Saturday and getting a little TV time. It was more of a, and I know it changed our whole deal at PPC when Ford came along, and really helped us a lot over the next couple of years.
Jeff won the championship with Ford or Chevy? It was Chevy, wasn't it?
It was right around there when Ford came on. I don't know
because I remember. I'm pretty sure it was Chevy, and then at the end of the season there was this big announcement that it was going to Ford, and I just couldn't understand. No,
it was
you won with Ford and then went to Chevy.
I think he was at Chevrolet when it was with the Kleenex when he and Harold first got together, and I'm pretty sure when with the 10 car. And I may be a little bit wrong on it. You'll have to ask Barnwell or one of these guys, but it was right along that time when he and I know that it really changed things when we got the manufacturer support with Ford. Then even that, and you got to know that there were a couple of Chevrolet teams already getting that. That's why us Chevrolet guys didn't get a tremendous amount, because they didn't have a lot left over. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm not bad-mouthing at all, but they were just putting their effort in a few Busch teams, and that was about it. So,
yeah.
But
some of the relationships that you form in that division. One of I can still remember, the back page of Scene. There was this great picture of you, Randy, and Todd, and I believe Steve Park.
Steve Park banquet.
Yeah.
Banquet shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I that was 2 photos of the year that old Cavelli got. That one, and then he got another photo of the year, my second championship, when I stood on the roof at Miami, come through the clouds after the donut.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that we redid that shot at Eddie Now's retirement party. Eddie Now the cop.
Yep.
Yeah, we redid
Eddie,
that thing.
From up north.
Yeah.
Eddie. Yep.
What does that say about the relationships that existed? I mean, could you actually have a relationship with a competitor back then?
All different than, me and Timmy always played golf a couple days a week.
At least.
And it was, the whole world was different. There was no social media. There was nobody harassing you. There was nobody talking crap about you. There was
We
nobody.
look forward to, if Jason was doing his golf tournament, we all look forward. If Randy did his, I think I remember Michael Waltrip had one in Owensboro that we all look forward to going to, like an autograph session or it wasn't we didn't get paid for anything.
That's right.
We just went and did them, and everybody did it. Even
that was the fun parts of the weekends, the autograph session, because everybody joked around. Everybody, it was really relaxed, and I think that's what one of the things is. And
even the Cup drivers then.
Yes, we're relaxed.
Like Food City night at Bristol.
Yep.
Everybody showed up.
Yeah, downtown Bristol.
Out at
the fair, the building. I can't remember over there.
Yeah, there was one in the spring and one in the fall.
Yeah.
And they were both. None of the Cup drivers got paid for that. But they showed up, and the fans showed up, and we lost that connection. I think with the fans, obviously, at least the.
Well, the social media
just
world,
because of social media and.
I can remember, and I'm gonna. You talk about the Food City stuff, and I can remember doing the one in, is it Johnson City, over in the building we were in, and I was sitting beside Kyle Petty at the time, and signing autographs, and naturally his line is way longer than mine. I had a little short line right here.
Yeah,
but I was feeling good about it. Well, I think it was trying to think it was his line, but it was my line. But still, it's beside the point. And I can remember him signing autographs for about 5 minutes, and we were sitting behind the table, and the fans were coming up in front of the table. And he said, no, we're gonna do something different. And he got up, went all the way around the tables, and sat on the other end of stood kind of propped up on the table, and signed autographs, because he said, I don't want to have a disconnect with the fans.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that stuck with me. Okay. And I look back and I go, that's the guy that didn't have to do that. He did it because I'm sure he grew up that way in racing, and his dad always signed every autograph, and that's what it was. And I don't know that they have that now. I don't know if they have that type of the older guys. I'm not saying he's old by any means. Here I am, gray-headed as can be, but still, at that time, I looked up to him, and I can always. I wish I had done that earlier in my career after I saw that, and there were still times I'm sure I was short with the fans, but that's the difference we're talking about. He didn't have to do that. He could have put in his 2 hours and walked out the back door and left, but he wanted to, engage the fans, and because his line was long, and he engaged them and talked to them. So that was
Well, speaking of things that you don't have to do, Randy, we've talked about this before, but when my book came out, Second to None, you did an appearance with me in Memphis, 7 o'clock in the morning for the local TV show. They had a local, morning show. You were there at 7 o'clock in the morning in Memphis to do that. And I don't know if you remember, but this always sticks in my mind. But Jimmy J.J. Walker was on right after us.
Dynamite.
Yep. Yeah, Dynamite.
Dynamite. And then the other thing that I remember, and you talk about autograph sessions being humbling. You and I did a book signing for Second to None at a Barnes and Noble, and of course nobody was there. I mean, and one person came up and they looked at the book and they put it, they thumbed through a page and they looked at you, they looked at me, and they put it back down and started to walk out. You chased them out the door and guilted them into buying that book. I honestly think that was the only book that I sold that day.
And I probably didn't cuss the guy.
that's funny.
Oh, so all three of you all won races. You were all considered, you were obviously winners. But I think Jason, the one time that I saw you almost halfway kind of sort of get mad was at Dover. And you know what I'm fixing to say, I think. There was a sign in the infield that directed motor coaches, or it was a sign in the infield to the garages, and it said Busch Series garage that way and the NASCAR garage that way.
You race NASCAR? No. I'm on the Busch Series. That's not NASCAR. That's not NASCAR. You race NASCAR? NASCAR Sundays.
That's it.
All I know, and the way that I've always put it, covering the Busch Series, I always enjoyed being a bigger fish in a smaller pond because that was kind of my series. There wasn't a whole lot of media, so I had all the stories to myself and all that kind of thing. But did you get the sense that you were racing NASCAR? Did you get the sense of fulfillment of racing the Busch Series?
Oh, I totally did. And then after winning a couple championships, you think you're going to go for 5 or 6 years. You're like, oh, we got this on a roll. Okay, did you do 2 and bases third, and then all of a sudden Junior shows up. Kenseth and Junior show up, and you're like, okay, now we're chasing these kids. And then Jason and Jeff Green come in, and they had their 3 or 4 years with that PPC car that was good. And you're like, wow, okay. And then, I got to get back up front. I got to get to the head table again. How do we do that? Like, shit, we got some catching up to do. So it fulfilled the hell out of me. And then when I run that Budweiser car and Craven got hurt, I filled in and did that Budweiser car 9 races. And when you come from a team that wins championships and the right hand knows what the left hand's doing and the crew don't stumble over each other and they know exactly what's happening and they could change a part or a sway bar in 2 laps instead of 20 laps, didn't have that at the Cup level. It wasn't even close. I mean, even though it was a Hendricks car and it was the 50 car, the Budweiser car, the togetherness of the crew, I was like, wow, this is totally different. I mean, do I want to work on Sundays in this environment? I'm having fun on Saturdays, and these guys aren't having fun here. It's just a different environment because of the pressures and that you put on yourself. And it worked better for me. I could be a better dad, a better husband. Maybe I could have been real shitty at times, but I could have been on a Saturday, racing Saturdays, than I could racing Sundays. Racing Sundays that was a 7-day-a-week job. And maybe I didn't want to work that hard.
Honesty is there, right?
Yeah.
I think at that time, and I'm not going to speak for these guys, we didn't really know any different. I mean, we were paying our bills. We were getting paid to drive a race car, which was
Pretty cool.
was really cool. I mean, so we were, and I was fortunate enough to win some races, like these guys as well, and there was some other opportunities presented at that time. And looking back, you go, well, maybe I should have done this and maybe I should have done that. I don't have any regrets. I've got some opportunities that I would have liked to have tried to maybe see how they would have, panned out. But I got lifelong friends. I mean, I got lifelong people that I love to death. Greg Pollux is one of my, most, dear people in my life. I don't get to see him as much as I'd like to, but he gave a lot for me. And I'm sure these guys can talk about owners that did that themselves, but it's I just didn't know any different. I thought when I had a late model team in the upstate of South Carolina, we just showed up to try to win, and then we got our first Busch car that was an old Patty Moe's car, and here we go. We're off and running, and then all of a sudden one thing led to another, and then you blink and you go, oh wow, what happened? So and to Randy's point there, you just don't know until you go, and to see how it is and see what it's really about. But I got no regrets. I mean, you'd like to. I wish I would have won a championship. I mean, I wasn't fortunate enough to do that, but I got some trophies with dust on them now, so I got a lot of good memories. So it's all good.
All right. So, Jason, that I can recall, I don't think you ever had any major team owner issues. You ran for your own team there for the longest time.
Hell, everybody likes Jason.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I had some later in my career. I had some team owner disagreements and things. We'll leave them where they are, but I drove for a lot of good people, and people really only think that I drove for Greg Pollux.
Yeah.
Because that's where
myself,
because that's where the bulk of my races were. But I drove several other cars after that, and I think Pollux kind of set the foundation for me enough to where nobody was going to match him as far as my team owner, and we had issues, but it wasn't really in public. Some of my other owners, and we just had to take care of them.
Well, Randy and Tim were kind of the same way. They never had any team owner issues.
None whatsoever. None. Which, if it wasn't for the team owners, we wouldn't have been able to race.
Right.
Exactly.
On one hand, and at the end of the day, you learn life lessons.
It's business.
Yeah,
Both. Like I learned that. You sign a contract. You sign a contract. You got to live by it.
That's right.
It's sometimes it's a hard lesson in life, and sometimes you don't like what you got yourself into, but it beats hanging drywall. I raced race cars and got paid pretty good money, and didn't have. I didn't bring money. My dad wasn't
right.
I didn't bring nothing to the table. I didn't have
Your helmet bag. That's
yeah,
right.
and I'm getting paid to do this, and then you get to a point where you think you're better than, or not better. You just want to better yourself. Sometimes you feel like you're better, but I never wanted to go anywhere unless it was just to better what we were doing, right? I think I can speak for Randy too. And so you're trying to better yourself, or at least think you are. And but sometimes you have to,
And everybody's thoughts are different. And we're drivers. Jason was the only one that was a half-assed team owner at the beginning, and so he knew the ins
Take
and
that
outs.
as a compliment.
Yeah,
half-assed.
yeah, correct.
Yeah, we'll take that.
That's half more than I gave myself credit for. So I'll take that as a compliment.
So he knew what it took. And, we're just drivers. We don't know what the hell it took. We didn't have employees worried about. We didn't have that. We're just, part of the team. And then some teams were better than others. But you learn so much, about business, about life. I mean, and people don't always have to do the right thing. Sometimes you trust people for doing the right thing, and they're like, okay, why did they do that?
In all seriousness, how do you separate business from performance? I mean, because 97, you went to Daytona and you'd had whatever the disagreements were, and it was, I think, there for at least from the outside looking in, it was touch and go whether or not you were going to be in the car.
I had a seat in another guy's trailer.
Touch and go.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to be nice.
I was his teammate, and I was like, I don't think Randy's racing in the Fina car,
But then you go out and you win Daytona.
Yeah. Margaro says instead of Gatorade, they put gasoline on it.
How do you do that? How do you separate the two?
When that strap goes on.
Yes, exactly.
And that window neck goes up.
Exactly.
That's it. When that window neck goes up and you flip that switch, you got one thing to do. That's your office and go to work. And I was lucky enough that the team did the same thing. Because every issue I had was with the car owner. It had nothing to do with the team. I mean, me and the team always got along well, But it's when the team owner gets a little difficult, it was okay. I mean, at the end of the year, like I said, we come back and won the championship. And, the first couple weeks was touch and go because you just wanted to be treated fair. That's all. I just wanted to be treated fair. And, it was cool. I mean, you talk about crazy car owners, old James Finch, he was the coolest one that I have ever driven for. I mean, he didn't complain. I mean, a lot of guys always complained about back in those days when you had plan A, plan B, plan C. They had all kinds of NASCAR had different pay plans for everybody. And I don't know where, what, or how, but okay, one owner, okay, I'll give you a percentage of plan B. You're not getting a percentage of plan A. And I was like, what the heck is plan A, plan B? I mean, I look at the entry blank and I'm supposed to get a percentage of that. Okay, it says it right on the entry blank. And then old Finch, he was the only one. If he got a NASCAR check coming to Phoenix Racing, he photocopied it and gave me half of it. Only guy ever done that. Everybody else, they nickel and dime in, friggin', no, you ain't getting that. No, you're not getting that. No, souvenir stuff, we didn't make no money. No, okay. Finch, here, you take all that stuff. He didn't care. And that was good to do because a lot of times, that mental side of this game it just started coming into play, I think, in the late 90s.
Yeah, it did. You didn't really think much about it until
Well, at the end of the day, at that time,
paid more.
We all had families.
No, that's right.
I mean, we had our families. We were trying to make sure that we were getting treated fairly, but we wanted to make sure we were providing for our family as well. I mean, and that's kind of, or I did. And
there was a lot of money being thrown around at that time. Like the crowds were there, obviously, and the popularity of the sport was there. Even, even though we were in the Busch Series,
not NASCAR, not NASCAR.
They were still paying us for autographs.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you guys want to come sign autographs? We're going to pay you.
It was kind of a weird thing to I think for a lot of us to, like, it wasn't about just getting paid.
No.
I mean, like, we wanted to get paid, obviously, and you wanted to,
being there was more important than getting
right,
paid.
I think just the fun factor of competing and being able to win a race and, race for a championship and have a like for me, like, never forget having the first real sponsor, like, and that changes you.
Yeah, it changes
like,
everything. Yeah.
Like, okay, now we got, Kleenex on the car. We better do something.
You go to one of those events.
You go from an underdog who no one really looked at to now you got a lot of.
I think at that, Rick, with the question you asked and what LaJoie said, when you strap in, the two separate because he knows what his job is. The business side is still in the truck when he gets back in the truck after the race, but his side was, I got a job to do. And before all the business stuff came along, all we did was either go-karts, modifieds, anywhere. All we did was try to win races, no matter what we tried to do. And and once we got in the car, and some of us, I've been known to strap my helmet on a little too tight and lose a little bit of thought process and oxygen. So I mean, but you do have to make sure that it's really, as drivers, it was always easy for me to separate, no matter what was happening off the, away from the track. You just had to do your, what you got to do there, once you strap in.
But don't think that it wasn't pretty. I mean, I was there, and it was volatile between him. When you say your crew you were good with, I beg to differ, but I'm not going to.
No, that's right. There were times. That's right.
I mean, never did they not think that Randy wasn't capable, or did Randy think that his team wasn't capable.
That's right.
But they would have their, their jawing and their issues. But at the end of the day, when the car went in the hauler and Randy tightened his chin strap, I think that shit stopped right there. Yeah. But in between that time was a lot. And I mean, at that time, I remember because I had just come over to base.
Yeah.
We were in this building.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were all in this building.
It started
together.
when base was in the building.
Wasn't that kind of the genesis of the issue?
A lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was Bill made some business decisions that took way advantage of me. With the building, with the leases, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, here I am driving for this guy, and he's freaking trying to, stick it. And it wasn't pretty, and then it's crazy. I hated it for the guys. They move out of here and go into an empty building, and they end up spending the winter, and that's what got us behind. They spend the winter building a damn shop, instead of race cars. So,
was there at least a little sense of motivation?
Oh, any kind. It was always motivating.
I mean, when you tighten that chin strap and you put the window net up, was there at least a little bit of a sense of, okay?
If there was somebody in front of you, it's a motivation. I got to pass that sucker. I mean, that's it. I mean, you didn't. I never needed any motivation. Some days might have been better than others behind the wheel,
I mean, like not long after that, I was going to go to Pollux and race. I mean, Harold was going to be my crew chief. They were putting my seats in, and I got a phone call from Bill Bumgarner saying, if you go over there, I'll have an injunction on you so fast at Daytona you won't know it hit you. So I had to.
And I was going to change seats with you.
Yes.
We were going to change seats.
Yes,
I was going to come to.
I was going to go.
You were coming to base?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to swap.
Yeah, and it was, and that was nothing like Bill didn't do anything wrong, or that was just a business decision I made.
There was a lot of moving pieces and stuff away from the track at that time. Just a lot of moving things, and because I mean, you had some regular sponsors in the series, Kleenex being one of them, Kimberly Clark and those guys, and you thought you knew sort of what some of the team owners were going to do, and there was a little bit of jockeying away from mine and Tim's. I never had any. I mean, I thought we were going to change seats there and change rides, and it just didn't pan out. For what reason it didn't pan out, I don't know. It was not because of my deal and his deal, but.
Well, that's actually, and then, I mean, that's where Jeff got.
Yeah.
Jeff went there.
Right
I went to C.C. Welliver, and Jeff went and got in the 32. That's my number, 32. That's,
because of the Kleenex.
Yes.
That's right. Okay.
That was my number, 32. I mean, like, that was going to be my ride, and then when all that went down, I didn't have anything. So Frank called, thank God, and I went and drove for Frank and Scott. And, I mean, it all works out, right? Like, it's all, but it is, like Jason said, there was a lot that went on. But it's such a small little, back
community.
Then I felt like
as the garage turns.
Yes, we all, you included, everybody knew every little thing. And
I didn't know every little thing.
Well,
I thought I did.
There wasn't, it was a pretty small group of people that controlled a lot, right?
At that time. Yeah,
At that time.
You're right.
All right, so as the Cup teams started becoming more prevalent, in order to keep up, what kind of lengths would you go to keep up, as far as under the hood and trickery and traction control?
I mean, other than a Houston big carburetor, I mean, that's I think everybody in the series had a carburetor in the truck, that at one time or another was probably on the 6 car, because that was the best thing I knew of was putting a little bigger carburetor on.
Or speedways, you could fudge here and there on the
spoilers, and that's right. We got the
rules are now put in place because of what we did back then. What we did, but and that's just the evolution of the sport. That's no different than. PPC was when Harold and Jeff kicked. I say theirs because I was on their teammate, but they kicked mine too. Kicked all of our butts so bad, won the championship, and everybody still says we're running traction control. Everybody.
That's what the easiest thing to say.
And I didn't have traction control on my side because I had my gas pedal. I felt my gas, but I know what I didn't have. Now, it could have been on the other side of the shop. I don't think it was, and I'll go to my grave thinking that it wasn't. That they were just
they figured out the air deal.
They picked. Right. They had a lot of things figured out before. I think we were trying to figure it out, but we were a little bit on our heels trying to figure it out. Myself and Steve. And that's nothing bad on Steve. They just picked it up a little sooner than we did. I would go to test, and Harold would come and help us, and I would be faster, 2 3/10 faster a lap with Harold, and it would make Steve so mad because he was like, "Well, I tell you to do this," but it was just a confidence thing. Those guys are going that fast, so I got to go that fast. So that was what kind of kept pushing you and making it so, but. There's always little things that we did back in the day that you can't do now. Well, I saw something that I guess the water bottles get real heavy these days. I saw that. But there's still some of the drink bottles, some of the same things. That's old tricks there. That's old stuff.
Right. 20-pound duct tape roll.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Well, I remember one of my first Busch races at Hickory. Houston's pushing the car. The 2 brothers, right? There was 3 brothers to Houston.
3.
Andy,
Marty, and Scott.
And then their cousin Phil. They all had Pepsi cans with a rag on top, wiping the tires down right before qualifying. Yeah, it's like, okay, we're pushing the car. Can I borrow those things? No.
Guilty.
Can I have a Pepsi? No.
What was it? Probably mid-90s. You couldn't have you kind of like we used to take our tires in the hauler, like I did. Like during the races, and then you couldn't do that anymore. Yeah. You couldn't bring them from home. That was because people were soaking them. Like you had to have, everything was scanned in, and so like a lot of that changed. I tried soaking them at Charlotte one time, just to see, and that didn't do anything. It didn't help me. It might help somebody, but it's crazy. You try to do things, and I don't know.
I use that propylene oxide.
In the motor?
Yeah, in the gas tank.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that old Davy Johnson? And Pumpkin was the truck driver, the Daly's juice car.
Oh, yeah.
The Daly's juice. He set it on every damn pole.
You got to realize my dad's business was named Kill Chemicals, and that's what we're on now. So you got to realize.
That's why your hair turns red.
You got to understand. That was a lot of things. I could research it and have them the next day.
Yeah, they were in stock.
So we could make it work, and that's.
You heard of a lot of things. There was a lot of stuff being tried. You smelled a lot of funny smells back in the 90s walking through the garage when people were starting their cars up.
What are you doing there? What do you got going there? Yeah. Like, what are you doing there?
Fuel, like there was always somebody doing something to the fuel. And
the crew guys always talked. That was the coolest thing.
They did.
As secret as everything was, it was no secrets because they couldn't wait to tell their buddy that they're going to outrun their ass.
One race, and it was all over the garage.
Well, you turn over, and that guy goes to work for the next team, and he tells everybody there. So
it's still the same now,
yeah.
Right? Like it's still the same, but we didn't have cameras on pit road either. Like,
you can't hide no more.
You can't. It's hard to hide.
You can't hide nowhere in the garage area. Oh, yeah.
Like there's a camera everywhere, and people still get away with certain stuff, but.
But is that any different? We talk about how much success, and I'm not going to say that Jeff Gordon is not the best driver that ever came by. The innovation and all that came with that car and what Abraham did to that car in that era. I know it's getting away from the Busch Series, but that's what, moved everything forward. I'd give anything to go up to the Petty shop right now. off to the back warehouse that I've heard is amazing things that no one gets to go in. You know, that's that, you know, secret room that all the stuff from back in the day is in. That to me would be as cool as, you know, seeing the trophies that he, you know, the 200 trophies he won. So, and there was a lot of innovative guys. I mean, in the series, Birdie, we talk about Birdie, we talk about, you know, Harold Holly. He was extremely innovative and understanding. And at that time it was a big spring. Everybody had to run this big spring. Well, all these other crew chiefs thought you had to just put a big spring in the right rear and everybody would go fast. But Harold would change 4 springs with that one big spring in the right rear, not just the
and
right
a sway
rear.
bar. Yeah, that's right.
And 4 other things. So the evolution, it was almost what people. We did the same thing with the coil binding of the springs. We went through that evolution, and everybody was like, "Oh, just take the front springs out of it." No. You got to do a whole lot of other stuff with it. So we kind of came about during a lot of that, and then now NASCAR seems to have governed it all.
06, I drove Harvick's car. He just got married to Delana, who was my PR girl, and he said, "Hey, Randy, I want you. What are you gonna do next year?" I said, "I don't know. I might have a part-time gig." He goes, "I need you to practice and qualify the Coast Guard car." He says 9 times. He said, "I can't do it." He says, I said, "Okay, oh, yeah." I said, "I ain't going to fit." He goes, "Lose weight." I said, "Okay." So I did. And we were flying to Kentucky. And engineers, crew chiefs were talking. And we were talking, I think Todd Gordon might have been in there. And then Sean, Shane, a bunch of guys. I was like, holy shit, there was a bunch of smart guys. And it's like, you guys don't know that. There ain't no way you can tell the shock travel. It's rough as hell. And you're running 200 mile an hour. They're like, "Oh, no." I said, "Ain't no way." I said, "I'll buy you all dinner tonight if you get within a quarter of an inch." And they said, No, we ain't going to do that to you. He goes, "How about an eighth of an inch?" I said, "Okay." I said, "You get within an eighth of an inch, I'll buy you all dinner." And they told me what the shock travel was. I put it on a piece of paper, stuck it in my wallet, went to the track. First practice, go out, jump in the car, run. I said, "Okay, third on the board." It was 80%. I was like, "Guys, we're a little tight." I said, "But this ain't bad." And we push it in after the plug check, and they take everything. I said, "Okay, we're going to one more run." Okay, stayed in the car, come out. At the end, I looked at the shock travel, within an eighth of an inch. And I was like, "How do you guys know that?" And I mean, that's when simulation and all that that all come in, and it's taken that to another darn level. I mean, it is. Today, it's just crazy.
I think you guys have taught me what I need to do with my sim racing. You know, I need a helmet on.
Okay, well, you think?
I mean, we talked about the unplugging and getting, you know, the strap. I think that's where I'm lacking.
Yep, maybe.
Well,
I
I got to feel it, man. I got to get that. I got to get in that feel.
Walk into the house.
I got to get a window net up here. You know, I got to get my gloves on.
You might need that
and
helmet
stuff.
on when you go inside and the wife looks at you. I'm going to hit you upside the head. You don't cool off.
Yeah.
Guys, listen, I could sit here forever and listen to the stories and reminisce. But for each of you, what's that one thing from your career that you hang your hat on? Either a win or a relationship or a moment. What's that moment in time for each of you that you hang your career on?
Well, mine is my first win in the Busch Series at RP. It was rain delayed, and it was my dad's team.
I was there that night.
So that's the only race I ever won in that level with my dad's team. And so that, you know, they're all special with Greg Pollux. Don't get me wrong. Greg Pollux gave me a phenomenal career. But for me, when I look at that, I've got a huge picture up in my shop now. And we found out the next week that we were pregnant with our first son.
Did you?
Or our son, I should say. So there's a lot of deeper things that went into that. So mine was the first win.
Cool.
I mean, sitting at that head table those 2 years, that's pretty damn cool. You know, and just to see, you know, the times that we had as a series, I mean, that like your book says, second to none. I mean, that's
attaboy.
It's nothing like it. That you know, the families. I mean, hell, we were in the campground and, you know, at Darlington or wherever, and it's you didn't do it much, but when you did it, it was fun, you know.
You know, you always say your first win, but that for sure was special. But I think just being able to race as long as I did, and have some success, you know, I feel like I drove for some cool people and got to meet a lot of
Turkey
cool,
farmer, right?
Yeah, right. I started off with Ray DeWitt, Diane DeWitt from Michigan, and you know we moved down here with our ASA team and our late model team, and brought my best friends with me, and we won our first Busch race together at Nazareth. With we had a sponsor, but it wasn't much, and at the time it was just a one race deal, and so to do that, I guess, was probably the coolest thing, and my grandma died a few races before that at Richmond, and they were burying her and having a memorial for her that day in Michigan while I was racing. And
wow.
That was, I'll never forget that.
That's
like
it. That's
a,
good times.
Yeah.
That's a crazy.
The day you won your first?
Yes, at Nazareth in '95.
Really? Wow.
And then I guess, winning New Hampshire the weekend that Adam was killed, and spending a lot of time with him in the Petty ride, and just getting
I can remember riding a shuttle. I mean, riding in a limo with Adam. I don't mean with Adam at your golf tournament.
Yeah,
I can remember.
we all got to know Adam.
Yeah.
We got, and I can remember that right now.
Surreal
That's unbelievable.
time, but it was you don't forget that stuff, I guess. So
Awesome.
And what do you miss most about it? For me, and I know you want to close, Rick, but I miss most of the people I race with. Everybody's like, do you miss racing? I don't miss the travel. I don't miss some of the political stuff. I don't miss some of the hoopla of it. I don't miss being away from my family like I did, but I miss the relationships. I miss these guys. The Steve Addingtons, the Todd Gordons, a lot of the guys and I can list, and these guys can list numerous names, but you don't do it as much as we did it and not gain quality and lifelong relationships.
Correct.
And I miss those more than I do anything.
Well, I've said this many times, and I believe I've told you that when I got out of racing, when I got cut loose, you were the only driver who called to check on me about a month later. And I guess everybody, hey, where's Rick? And, that honestly and truly meant the world to me. So,
And I think you were always fair reporting. You didn't report on your feelings. You reported on the facts. And I think a lot of that now is missed. They report on what they think they should report on.
I think the biggest thing now is, if I wrote something, if I wrote something about you in Buckshot, the next week I would have to see you again.
Correct.
And
you wrote about him and Buckshot a lot.
Well,
a lot of opportunity there to write about it. That's a whole different story right there.
Weeks in there.